Okay. Being after 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lynn, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Halchanski?
Here.
Mrs. Vanderwater?
Here.
Ms. Lesniak? Here. Mr. Tupper?
Here.
Mr. Dudzinski?
Here.
Ms. Saban?
Here. Okay. First item, can I get a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from the September 7th meeting?
I'll second.
Any changes? No? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstained.
I'm sorry? Howard?
Abstained.
Okay. Motion carried. Okay. Before we get into citizens' comments, anybody that has signed in with the town clerk can speak. We have a 3-minute per person limit. The board does not have to engage a back and forth conversation. So you're here to present your comments to the board, and then we will certainly take them up at that point.
Mayor Francis, I wanted to, ask if we could kind of continue the conversation we were just having before the board meeting started, because as acknowledged by a couple people, it sounds like there's a few people here from Trade Brook that have questions. I think it would be beneficial for them to let us finish this dialogue. So maybe Jason, Nadine, and, as a collective group, we can answer some of their questions without them needing to speak, if you don't mind.
I don't have a problem. Jason?
Do you have anything else to add right now, I guess?
That's the update I had.
Okay.
That they have responded. The deadlines for my items are September 30th. They replied back to us, they've been working towards that goal.
And you're seeing improvements out there?
Yes.
Okay.
And Jason, you have also been there almost every day, some days, long hours out there.
Yes.
And you have modified erosion control methods as situations have come up.
So erosion control is a flummoxing thing. Its goal is to allow clean water to leave the site. These big storms we've been having, we've had flooding because these things filter water so slowly. Right? So they're acting as a dam for the water. So we have a consistent flooding problem in 2 areas. We've got to a point where we're pretty close to eliminating those things so that we're not causing a problem by following PEC's law that they impose on us.
Okay.
What?
We're doing what DEC, in the law, what DEC tells us that we have to do. And DEC was out there the other day, Jason?
What's DEC? Is that like OSHA?
Department of Environmental Conservation.
Okay.
Yeah, they oversee,
Stormwater management.
they oversee that.
Right, the town's in MS4, so we have special regulations for stormwater. And yes, the DEC was out last
Wednesday?
Wednesday or Thursday, and went through the notice of violations that I had issued for the site, confirmed all them, said we're taking the proper steps for moving that along. So, but they will be issuing a letter to the developer based on their findings.
Do you think the letter will be with recommendations on how to prevent further flooding issues or violations, or do you know?
My understanding, the letter is just going to reiterate what was in my violations.
Okay.
And probably put some threatening stuff in there about consent orders and fines.
Okay. And then I haven't been out there in a couple weeks. Has the vacant land been mowed yet?
The land in front of the clubhouse was, now the land on Van Ness Road has been, and we've got quotes for that to be finished. Burlex has until the end of tomorrow to finish the road, the mowing out behind the clubhouse. If not, we will have the vendor started on Friday. And that again is at Burlex expense. Okay.
I think we should open it up to citizens' comments.
Okay. Lynn, who's
Dawn O'Neill?
Can you come up to the mic, please, and state your name and address?
You're on.
Okay. All right, Dawn O'Neill, 220 Bloomfield Street. I'll first continue on the topic that we were just on. Though I heard the town attorney speak about steps needed to be taken, left to be taken, waiting for from National Grid. You know, what it doesn't address that we would like addressed as a community is, well, first off, the roads are not ready. There's been sawing and cutting and stones and Bloomfield's a mess. But should this drag on longer, what is the plan when we get 12 inches of snow in November and this is not resolved, because I have no confidence that the timeline will be speedy? How are our roads going to protect us? It needs to be plowed, it needs to be salted. So what is the backup plan? We need one. We have healthcare workers that need to get to life-saving events in their jobs. We have people that need to get to work. So I understand the status, but there's definite need for a plan B. Additionally, I have numbers, so I'm just going to go through my list given the time limit. Unruly speed by the contractors, developers, and affiliates. I can tell you on Bloomfield, they go 40 miles an hour minimum sometimes, blaring through there, kicking up dust. We have children that catch buses. I've almost been hit twice walking my dog in the morning. Something needs to be done. It's not a thoroughfare. It's a community. Lack of safe lighting and entrance on the streets. Family member of mine almost hit from behind because there is no lighting. People don't even know that they're slowing down to turn into a development. It's unsafe. It's not even safe for us to walk our dogs or children at night. Street signs, stop signs, you know, some were up, some fell down, some haven't been replaced. Quite honestly, it looks in disarray for something to be a premier development. Sewage, flooding, drainage, yes, we just talked about it. I will tell you that someone couldn't even get out of their car on Lexi Lane in the cul-de-sac because the water and sludge was such a mess. Continues to flood, continued. Now, we don't have Seneca River, but it continues to flood at the end of Bloomfield before it gets to Dewport. The road was cut up. We were literally held hostage in our neighborhood for 3 to 4 hours with no notice because they cut the road up with a 6-foot, 8-foot deep hole to handle sewage crossing the road. No one was notified. We literally were hostage. We had no way to get out. Now, there's stone in there. It looks a mess. It's horrific. The communication was abysmal. That can't happen. You can't hold residents hostage so the developer can fix a problem with no notice, no plan, no bridging, nothing. We talked about road maintenance. You talked about the weed control. Okay, the weed control over by the clubhouse, quite frankly, that's nice for the residents living on Bloomfield. There is nothing but unruly, unsightly weeds growing sky high with trash and construction buckets. I don't really care about the clubhouse. We need a clean, representative community to be proud of. It looks horrific. And my last point being the ponds, they're muddy swamps. I'm hoping the DEC is addressing that because we have a very big mosquito problem that needs addressing. I personally, Mary Frances, you know, I have a personal issue where my house continues to flood. I'm not going to go into the personal issue, this is community topics, but that continues to be a problem and it's icing on the cake. I plead with you folks to hear my peer neighbors. We spend a lot of money on homes we need to be proud of in a community we should feel safe in. That is not happening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.
Lynn, next.
Molly, Kim,
Kids only.
thank you, sorry.
She's Irish. I'm very Italian fella. Hey, I'm Molly Canzoni. I moved here in May from Virginia, but originally from Kentucky.
What's your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, 221 Bloomfield.
Okay, thanks.
Live across the street from Miss Dawn. And second, everything that she just said. Also, you know, it just infuriates me because I came from a place where I paid roughly $1,000 a year in taxes for a house that is bigger than the one I have here and 3 acres of land versus now I pay that much a month in taxes and really don't feel like there's, I mean, I don't care about the developer and the problems with the town or whatever. The roads have got to be taken care of. I'm a nurse, I gotta get to work. Could be your kid, your mom, your dad that I'm taking care of. I would hope that you would want me to be there to do it. I'm a horrible driver. So if the roads are in bad condition, y'all better just get on out because she can't drive at all. And the mud is on the road from, I mean, OSHA is where, I don't, do y'all have OSHA? Or is that the, whatever?
DEC is.
Yeah, they would be on that and be fining every day if that was in Virginia. The silk fences and stuff, there would be no mud in the road.
That's what our DEC.
Obviously, nobody cares because it's a mess. It's just a mess. But, I mean, we gotta get some help. And I know that the police have been called to the neighborhood, I don't know how many times, for noise problems from a particular neighbor. Basically, the police are just laughing at these folks who are making the complaints, even though they've been threatened. And the music continues to blare at 3 and 4 in the morning. People have to go to work, people have small children. So I don't know if there's anything you guys, I just wanted to make you aware of it. That as far, I looked at the town laws and the noise ordinance. I mean, you have one. It just doesn't seem to be taken seriously in our neighborhood, unfortunately. Or I saw where it was punishable with fines and up to 15 days in jail, I guess. But they've been called repeatedly every weekend. This is a nice neighborhood, you know. I mean, I didn't expect to see the police there every other week, you know. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Vinnie Turner?
I don't want to be the dead horse, just because all the issues are pretty similar. Can I show you video you can pass around or pictures so you can visually see what we're experiencing
Could you,
when we say about the roads or?
could you email it to the clerk, or is it too big? No.
I mean, there's a video, there's 4 pictures. You could just scroll over so you can see the Bloomfield. I'll start.
Benny, can you tell me your address?
224 Lexi Lane. So Bloomfield is the video, and the 4 pictures following are the actual cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac is a very big cul-de-sac. And if you scroll through that, literally there had to be 3 feet of water.
And when was this?
That's the cul-de-sac.
When was this?
Was this the beginning of August?
June?
Yeah, June.
Okay, so
But every time it rains, that's what we're doing.
I'm gonna say that it's probably not like this today, because I know Jason has been down there.
If you go
Every
over
single
there,
day.
it's a big dirt pit.
Oh, so now it's a.
The cul-de-sac is just all dirt.
We will address a couple more, respond to a couple more items.
So it's just aggravating with,
Yeah.
you know, everybody
Right.
building these nice homes
Right.
and you can't drive your car without, you know, getting trashed or anything like that. It's unfortunate.
Is that the cul-de-sac that's in the back?
No.
The first one,
The first
right?
one. I mean, you could drive after this, take it right.
Yeah, I've never been to that one, I went around the back, I moved around the back.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.
Sure he gets his phone back.
Yeah. Don't scroll too much.
Aaron,
There's a deal.
Jail.
I don't wanna go back to jail. I'm just kidding.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Erin Castor. I live at 212 Bloomfield.
Yeah, was it Castor?
Castor.
Okay.
Like the oil.
Okay.
Very much I just wanted to come up and say a couple comments. I won't take a lot of time. I'm a healthcare worker myself, and I have 4 children, 11 and under. I just wanted to ask in terms of any signs or anything we could have. We have bus stops now, we have people flying past, and I'm not just talking about contractors, I'm talking about people that come to look at the development, to see what's available, people off the road. There's just nothing to direct people in terms of the speed limit or anything like that that would just be really appropriate for families. I have a child with special needs. I voiced that many times when asking for signs, and that has not been addressed. And I do want to acknowledge, just while I'm taking a minute, to say that I live right in the middle of Bloomfield Street, so I've watched the developer, I've watched the crews, I've watched them over and over and over again work day and night to try to resolve the flooding. So, and at times it's been almost uncomfortable for them to come into the neighborhood because people are so angry. So any assistance from the town or anything at this point would be or taking a responsibility would just be appreciated, so that the same people aren't taking the same hits over and over again for what seems to be a mass problem, not just in our community, but I think it's all through Baldwinsville. So I just wanted to take a minute and say that yeah, it's a lot of work's being done, but it's just not, we need help. I think we just need some help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mary Frances, I just want to interrupt. Are you going to respond to any of this, or are we going to wait for citizen comments?
I'm going to get all the comments
Yeah,
and then we'll
discuss. Okay, I just want to make sure I understood the process here, because I'm sure people are looking for some answers.
Phil Seco?
Another hire
All 2 copies of the declaration of compliance, and then another copy if needed. Good evening, my name is Phil Seeger. I'm here with my wife Kaylin, we're residents of Brook at 201 Lexi Lane. I'd like to thank everyone just for coming out, sit down and listen to us. We're all here in the hopes of getting assistance with the resolution for the wrongdoings inflicted by Brook Properties and Associates. For months, Tree Brook homeowners have conveyed the continuous issues experienced by everyone. Just to name a few, foundations requiring hydraulic lifting, several basements flooding on multiple occasions, the installment of a national grid line needing to be dug up through phase 1 and phase 2, and the continuous stormwater drainage that's causing flooding that's impacting both Bloomfield and Lexi Lane. Tonight, though, I'd like to personally address the accountability in regards to the Tree Brook regulations. There's a declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions for Tree Brook subdivisions. That was a document produced May 11, 2020 by Brook Property. The second document outlining detailed specifics listed under bylaws of the Tree Brook Homeowners Association was also formed. The documents indicates that a declarant is defined as a legal owner of the property. It further states that hereby declares that all properties described as subject to this declaration to the following easements, restrictions, covenants, and conditions, which are there for the purpose of protecting the value and desirability of which shall run with the real property subjected to this declaration, which is and shall be binding on all parties. My concerns arise in the accountability to enforce such action. I've spoken to Mr. Jacobson on this topic. He was adamant that the document was written in such a way it's now become the town's responsibility to enforce the said actions. I followed up with the code enforcement, who said that was false, believing it remains the responsibility of the homeowners association. When I followed back up with Mr. Jacobson, he said he'd contact the code enforcement himself. I'm not quite sure if that's taken place. Town codes, along with development covenants, are created to increase the safety and integrity of structures, thereby reducing deaths, injuries, and property damage. It helps enforce a standard of uniformity across the development They're set in place to stop neighbors from letting their homes fall into decay, lowering property values, and to create a peace of mind when both purchasing and later selling their homes. When there is a breach in this contract, I'd like to know who's accountable to both address and enforce these guidelines so that the whole Brook development doesn't turn into a free-for-all, which we're all starting to see before our eyes. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the board, I will get copies of this or send them out there for all of you.
Thank you.
Jeff Cook?
I have nothing to say. I just signed my name. I'm good to go.
Just in case,
It's out of an attendance log.
you signed your first time over.
Same stuff.
Gene Akers?
You have the second too, if you want.
Well, my only comment is, with all the comments at the beginning of the meetings, how does one get to make a comment on something that may have been said during your meetings? We not get a chance to, you know what I'm saying?
You mean the work session?
No,
Pardon me?
at the end of the meeting, whatever
No,
was discussed during the
meeting,
agenda.
sometimes I think I even have had, you know, something regarding your meeting, I'm just wondering, do we get a chance?
So you would like to have citizen comments at the end of the meeting as
Well,
opposed
we
to
always
the beginning?
have, I mean, this is new to me with the beginning, I guess last time they did too, but I don't think anybody.
We've had them in the front, then we've had them both front and back, and then we had them in the back. And to give the citizens a chance to come in and voice their opinion if they weren't in favor, really involved, or matter of anything that was on the agenda, so they could make their comment, and then that's why it was moved back up. But certainly, Gene, we'll look at that.
You would what?
I'll look at that and see if we want to put it back as well.
Well, you know, I mean, sometimes things go on and you have a question, or you have a question regarding what was said, and
Okay?
that's all.
Okay, let's address the issue of the noise ordinance. I know that Casey has gotten a number of complaints that have been filed. I know Nadine, the town attorney, has looked at the ordinance, and Nadine, would you please discuss how the process goes once we get the complaints and how we enforce it?
So the noise is regulated in the town of Van Buren in our local code under chapter, I'm sorry. Is that better? Sorry. So noise is regulated in our town under chapter 34 of our town code. And the individual responsible for the enforcement of this chapter is our code enforcement officer. So that may be why if police appear or respond to a call, why they're not going to issue a ticket under this provision. I'll be honest, I don't get into criminal law, so whether there is a criminal law provision at the state level that may apply, those law enforcement agents would know better than I. But as far as this, enforcing chapter 134, Casey Palmer, code officer, he's responsible to do it. Now, having said that, if there's a party, if there's some raging party going on at 3 o'clock in the morning, our code officer is not going to be out there at 3 o'clock in the morning. But here's what it does mean. File a form. What I would recommend, because enforcement of this takes place through our town court, which is a criminal proceeding. So we have the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. If it's your neighbor or somebody in close proximity, take out your...
I report it.
Record it.
Yeah, multiple.
That's perfect. Record it, file a complaint. Where you are critical in this, our code enforcement officer can issue an appearance ticket, he can file through with the information, and he can proceed, and I will prosecute it in our local court, but we need you as the individuals to be witnesses for that.
Sure.
To get to that, to overcome that beyond a reasonable doubt burden of proof. And I say this only because there are circumstances, not necessarily this one or in this town, where people will complain about their dog barking, right? And they complain. And I don't question whether that dog did not bark for 3 hours straight from midnight till 3 a.m. But then when you say, okay, I need you to testify, they say, it's my neighbor, I'm not gonna go in there and do it. That kills the whole argument, because we can't prosecute something if somebody's not willing to be a witness. So, if you have a problem, file a complaint, give specifics, date, time, recording, and if you can have a date recording of that, we'll follow through.
I will mention, as I did earlier, Casey does have a number of complaint forms, and he did say he does have some video. One question I will raise is the decibel reading. How would that play out in court? If we don't have an actual decibel reading, how do you do that?
Well, there's prohibited acts. So it's how there's different ways to try to enforce things. So for example, I'm just taking a look at, okay, yeah, 134-4A is an Apple. The operation of any radio, phonograph, or use of any musical instrument in a manner or with such volume as to annoy or disturb the quiet, comfort, or repose of persons in any dwelling, apartment, or type of residence.
That's the
We
way
don't
I
have-
understood it,
we
because
don't
we
have a
have no way
decibel.
to say it what
No,
decibel is.
It's subjective,
Can I
completely.
say, I spoke with Casey, actually the town does have something to measure the decibels.
That may be, but I'm just saying for purposes of enforcement, it's not critical that he's out there with that
Okay.
decimeter? Is that what it is? I don't know. I'm thinking of decimeter on a ruler, but whatever. Decibel, I'm sorry, not a decimeter, sorry. Anyways, we don't need somebody doing that. You can still proceed, for example, under 134A, because it's not reasonable. But that's where your testimony is critical, because you have to have somebody who says beyond a reasonable, that's not, and if you have a video and it shows that it's 3 a.m. and the music is blaring, that's not reasonable. So to the extent that there's a concern that somebody's not out there with a decibel meter reader, that's not a problem.
I don't even think that, I mean, disturbing the peace is disturbing the peace,
And it's just
Calling
on
the
the
cops just
street.
makes it worse, and they just retaliate.
So don't do it, because the police officers,
Don't do anything.
well, they can't enforce our code, because our code, or at least chapter 134, specifically specifies that it's our code enforcement officer who's the enforcing officer. So they're not going to have the jurisdictional authority to do it. That's why I said, I don't know if there's a state regulation that's out there. My guess is no, because otherwise there wouldn't be noise ordinances all over the place.
Isn't there a noise ordinance in the town of Van Buren where you can't start before a certain hour and can't go beyond a certain
7
hour?
a.m.
So it depends on what you're referring to. So for example,
For instance, like the noise, like a party.
so that's the one, it's the chapter 134 that I'm referencing, okay?
Yeah.
But I think what you're referring to specifically for, with the dates, or I'm sorry, with the time, under that 134-4E, as an elephant, the erection, including excavation, demolition, alteration, or repair of a building has to happen between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Yeah.
So if somebody's out there with a generator cranked up at 6 a.m.,
Yeah.
that would be their time. But just to say you can't have a party after midnight,
No,
that's not in here.
Right. I mean, not specifically a party, like even a dog party, there's that. You know what I mean, like a
Right.
noise ordinance.
Right, and that's why it's not, I don't want people to think that just because we can't have a code enforcement officer out there at 1 in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, that doesn't mean it can't be enforced. You can have a dog that barks for hours, and when a code officer does, or a dog control officer shows up, the dog can stop. Okay, that doesn't mean it didn't just bark for 3 hours
Right.
straight and annoy
I'm
everybody
just using
around.
that as an example,
Understand.
because everybody has dogs in the neighborhood, and they're all fun.
Let me interject at this point that Casey did speak to the non-emergency sheriff's office. He's gotten dates that the sheriffs have been called there, and I asked him to make sure that if when an appearance ticket is issued, that goes into the documentation as well, because I would assume that the court would look on that there is a problem.
It won't establish that on a date certain, at a time certain, that it took place. And if it's one particular property, more than likely, and I could be wrong, but you only need to go through this process 2 or 3 times before they can figure out not to have the music that loud at 3 a.m. So far they haven't actually been into court.
Right.
They haven't had the fine. Now, when you mentioned the 15 days in jail, I will tell you that's not.
Well, I mean, I was saying, that was like the
Yes.
extreme, I'm sure.
No, it
But
is.
it does say it's punishable.
It is. And honestly, the only time I ever see the jail be invoked is when, for example, somebody is on their 10th violation and clearly the $250 fine doesn't matter. It's become a cost of the party that night. So then they say, okay, you know what? Here's your jumpsuit for the night.
Can I just state that we went through the process of speaking. We did not call the police, but we had spoken to the police. I went and spoke to them off our property because our family's been receiving the retaliation for those that call the police. And they have threatened my children and my family. And I was told to bring the report to the clerk's office here during court, and I did that, and she took the paper and laughed and threw it back. So that's been our process thus far, trying to follow. Just so you have an idea of kind of what us doing, you know, what you're asking us to do has led to.
So in the future, don't go to the court clerk, go to the codes office.
Okay.
Because that's what initiates the process.
Okay.
Because what the court clerk will tell you is they can't do anything until it becomes an accusatory instrument that the judge can act on.
The other thing is, just so you realize, I had Counselor Mike email me last week with a noise problem in his location as well. And the cops have always told us to tell residents to call the police. Because at least if the police show up 95% of the time, the problem goes away. Unfortunately, in this situation, it's not. In Mike's situation that he emailed me on, it's, I don't know, you haven't said anything the last couple of days, but I don't know if it's been curbed or not. But this isn't a problem that is just contained in Traybrook. I have it in my neighborhood. It's just, it's sad that the neighbor is retaliating at this point, so, you know.
No, we have in one of our other ordinances a time limit on garbage pickup because we don't have trucks rolling in at 5 o'clock in the morning either. So that's in their contract.
That's helpful. That can make all noise they won't come by anytime. That's helpful. That's helpful.
Okay. As far as weed control, Jason, I know that you and I had spoken. The whole site is considered a construction site. And when you and I spoke, and correct me if I'm wrong, the weeds that are growing on Bloomfield or anywhere where there's not construction helps to retain the water in those locations?
That's true. That counts as vegetation for getting the site vegetated. It is unsightly. It's the roots of the plants that are important for stormwater control. That being said, the right-of-ways for the road is where we're planting grass and that growing. But yeah.
So if it takes 2 years to finish building, because nothing happens fast with a house going up, we have to look at weeds for several more years.
Either that or to have more mud and water.
We'll have to take a look at that. I can't answer that at this point.
I'll take plants over water.
Word.
Yeah.
Right now it's both.
But it's just unsightly. It's both.
Okay. Next, as far as speeding by contractors, vendors, anybody, I don't know how to prevent that other than to call the cops and tell them to, you know, come in and sit there. Jason, Doug,
Just
go ahead.
this might put a look, the highway department yesterday installed the 2 stop signs that are in our code, as well as the 3rd one that me and Jason have already reviewed and will be in our code. We already installed it at the end of Bloomfield where it meets Newport. That one was installed, as well as the one that's Lexi Lane and the one exiting the development onto 48. We installed a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign at the appropriate distance off the entrance. The only sign that is currently not installed yet, because I don't know what happened, is the one for Lexi Lane, the actual street market sign.
I haven't seen the speed limit.
We had to mark that. We put it in yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, just yesterday those were put in. So that was yesterday, probably afternoonish. So as of last night, all 3 stop signs, all other road signs were up except for the one for Lexi Lane, because we had to work that. We didn't have that.
Unless the people that play the loud music took it down.
I will double check tomorrow.
Then maybe we can call the cops, they'll put us up.
Stranger things have happened, but I will double check them tomorrow.
They probably went with that bucket and that drain thing. That's a different neighborhood. They
as far as the speeding, again, that's gonna have to be something that the police are called for. Speeding is a problem on basically any thoroughfare in the town. And the only thing we can do is put in enhanced patrols, but
I think
again, unless the speeder
I
is
think the
caught.
signs are a good step.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep us posted though.
Yeah. Okay. As far as the lighting, street lights, I understand that there is a street light district formed for Traybrook. It has not been enacted upon yet, and I believe that that is the residents have to ask for the street lights to go up, Nadine?
So creating the lighting district established the means by which you can have street lights. So your foundation is there to do that. And then it's just the step of, how do you typically do that in your other neighborhoods with their street lights?
Well, subdivisions we've had in the last 20 years have included the streetlights
As part of the development part of it, yeah. I was gonna say, usually the neighbors don't petition for it.
Well, and this is the second time we brought it to the board needing streetlights. But people don't want to shine it in their bedroom, and I know in some cases National Grid decides where they're placed, but we need lighting, and it's not safe back there. It's not safe.
Where they, like you've identified, where those poles go, the town doesn't usually have the control over that.
Understood, we just need lights.
And I'm not even confident the town has the ability to force that issue, but,
Nadine,
We'll
can
follow
we take a look at that, you and Jason? And
we'll follow up.
okay.
So would that be a National Grid thing, Jason? So National Grid has to be like, okay, here's a new neighborhood, where are we gonna put street signs and get them on a schedule?
Streetlights, correct.
Street lights, yeah. And so how would National Grid know what's going on out there if, you know, the town doesn't ask National Grid to go do this, you know?
That's what we're gonna.
Figure out, okay.
Yeah, usually it's the developer that does it. That's why I'm questioning, because it's very rare for the town to initiate that.
Okay.
I have a question about the statement. Would National Grid potentially be able to do like a tentative layout, and then that could be brought in to be voted on? Because I remember the first meeting you had said that usually there's a vote, it has to be like X% of the current residents in place for it to be approved. That was a concern that was brought up, was lights in certain yards and, you know, adjacent to bedroom windows, et cetera. But maybe if National Grid could give a proposed layout, and then we all could look at it, you know, that would solidify a decision, move forward.
We can't get them.
I was gonna say, I know.
Am I wishful thinking?
I mean, National Grid is not typically that,
We have one person only, please, talking, Nadine?
No, I was just saying, National Grid's not usually that accommodating.
Okay.
Usually they decide, they take their field engineers out, they determine where they're necessary, and you'll come home one day and there's a street light.
And I think that's fine, I think that's what everyone is just gonna have to come to terms with. They've never put a street sign interrupting someone's sleep by shades or curtains, making any sense of it, I don't know.
Yeah,
It might both ways, so if we want streetlights, I think we just go for it.
I agree, we just got too many young children, as Vinnie said, we have every home except Vinnie that has a dog, right? So, I mean, we just need a safe place to walk and.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to get that to proceed. As far as the remainder of the flooding and the erosion control, as Jason said, there has been a lot of work down there. The big pond, the developer has actually picked up the 2 pieces of equipment, or concrete piping that have to go in to the pond. And that is the deadline, either the 23rd or the 30th, that has to be completed by.
Just a quick question, I guess the process for following up, if once everyone stops looking and picking over things with a fine tooth comb and this all happens again, do we contact the developer to try and get them to maintain things again? Do we contact the town? Who's gonna be,
The town
I guess, making sure that this continues beyond September 30th when the deadline is met?
The town engineer is in charge of the stormwater. Do you want to go through that process, Jason?
You can certainly start with me. That's,
Okay.
kind of whatever you want, kind of all the board members on it, developer.
I don't want to bother the wrong person, but sounds good.
Jason, my backyard obviously, backs up to the pond, so, and I heard you mention concrete pipes being put in. Can you kind of just quickly describe that scope of work?
They're tearing up your yard.
Yeah.
Out behind your fence, there's that erosion spot there.
Yeah.
It's actually that ditch is supposed to continue on the pasture lot. It's kind of an L-shaped thing, and that's where this concrete structure's be going.
Okay.
Through the front yard again.
I'm just wondering, I'm just curious.
If you want to have a meeting, I can show you the plans of what to.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
The sewage and the road being torn up on Bloomfield. Jason wasn't aware that that lateral was going in that day. So it really is up to the developer to notify people when things are gonna happen. And for them to have not put something across the road so that you could go either way is just unacceptable, so.
Yeah, I mean, literally hostage.
Yeah.
We could not leave.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's gonna get paid back this week. There's a driveway that's getting paved, and I believe that contractor's also taking care of that road cut, because it is just stone right now.
Okay.
Right, do you know if that's just going to be patched, Jason, or is it going to be made like a smooth road? Right, because you can put lipstick on a pig, but is it going to be?
A patch will always be a patch, until it's milled up and repaved. Try to leave them a little high so they can settle a little bit, but we're gonna know there's some patch.
Speed bump.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Speed bump.
Speed bump right now, I love it.
There you go.
Nobody goes past our house, even the kids, so.
Maybe
So at this point, I think we've basically touched on each of the concerns you had. And again, Jason has been very involved, I've been very involved, the attorney has been kept up to speed. Rolex has actually made a lot of progress, not that it is totally complete, but we have stopped issuing any permits and we have stopped inspections unless there is an inspection that would help resolve some of the erosion control methods. There was a house on Lexi Lane that a foundation inspection was done, and then it took 3 inspections for the foundation to be adequate, where the dirt could go back in around the foundation. That also helped to try and alleviate part of the mud coming off of those big mounds of soil. That would be the type of situation that the town would allow to move forward. Otherwise, we're not putting out any new building permits and doing any other inspections until the situation is improved by Rolex. John?
And Francis, what will be the form of communication? One, which you probably don't want to hear from us all the time, do we come to the board meetings, or will there be a form of communication so that we as neighbors, aren't assuming or thinking something and we have no idea if something was fixed, what was addressed, what was
Well,
solution?
if you want to give me a couple of emails, or if you want to have one point person, I will gladly give you an update as we have them. I mean, I have done emails with a few people, so, but probably email would be the easiest way, the quickest way to get stuff to you, updates.
And anybody can ask me when they see me out there. They haven't found anybody out there to be bashful about talking to me.
One item I think Mr. Seager
Yes.
brought up, the bylaws and the declaration, that's not, the town's not a party to that. We don't have the ability to enforce those items, just for clarification. That's the homeowners association, your membership, that's, when you hear of the stories of homeowner associations and how they work or don't work, it would all be whether or not these action items or the items within this are enforced.
Can I ask a question about retention ponds and maintenance of the green drainage areas? That will become the HOA's responsibility because the town's not going to be mowing and things like that, correct? In Traybrook, Jason?
That is correct.
So what leverage does the town for the future for you folks have over poor maintenance procedures in those types of areas by the HOA? Say if the HOA goes south, what actionable ability does the town have? Because it's not town property. Like you might have inherited in other programs.
Right. So in the MS4 program, the town does inspections on private stormwater facilities. Like M&T Bank has one. I go out and inspect those and I send maintenance letters to them so they keep up with them.
That's applicable to the HOA, which is slightly different, or is it all in the same category?
No, that's part of the maintenance agreement.
Do we do anything currently with mosquitoes or bugs and things and stuff?
No.
That's my knowledge.
Okay.
And
Should the town consider that, Jason, some invasive weeds and species, for instance?
the town from the county supplies us with mosquito pouches. They're little pouches that we give out to homeowners that can throw in standing water and places to kill off mosquito larvae.
Now, it seems like it's a funny spot while thing is under construction.
So-
Especially in a large one, and it goes to phasing, that concerns me about in general, in developments, that phasing period can be extensive, a number of years. Say it goes long, say it's bigger, say it's an 8-year thing.
Sure.
To do a much larger thing, and that means there's certain construction rules that those undone phases fall under, that can last for a significant period, and I think that's a concern that should be thought about in general, for other developments.
It is included in the stormwater management that the town has to oversee.
DEC came in here a number of years ago and received a lot of laughs when they said that these basins are good for mosquito control. Because black frogs get them, and frogs eat a lot of mosquitoes. So that's DEC's.
Yeah, there's probably a lot to be said about all those subjects, so I get it.
One other thing, I think Darcy.
Want to know the leverage.
One other thing Darcy reminded me about, the snowplow. In one of the letters that I sent to Burlex, I said I needed a snowplow plan in case the easement does not occur before the first snow. At this point, I have not gotten a snowplow plan. I have asked for it again. And, you know, right now, there's nothing that I have. Not all of the problems have been resolved. That is still one thing that needs to be resolved.
What's the issue with the easement? I don't understand.
So we can't take dedication of the roads with some of these outstanding issues. If we can't take dedication of the roads, like ownership, then we can't maintain them.
Am I gonna get a refund on my taxes then?
No, highway taxes go to pay for the maintenance of every town road.
But mine.
No, I wanted to reiterate, we want to be plowing your roads this year.
Sure.
Okay, so that, just from the time, I feel comfortable speaking for the whole board on this, I think.
Especially the highway department.
And the highway department. Okay, we want to plow those roads this year, and we are working really hard to make sure that we have dedication of those roads. So, I mean, I just want to, we're on the same page here, so.
Nadine has been tasked to call Burlex weekly to get an update on the status of the easement. They have in turn started making weekly calls to Grid to get this process done.
And we just, please don't let phase 2A fall by the wayside because there's one sole person living back there, me. We need to get out. We can't just have their guy with a pickup truck and a snowplow on top of it once a day coming through and sweeping the road.
Right.
I don't know when you arrived, but there was a work, no, tonight at the meeting.
At the beginning.
There was a work session beforehand, and I had mentioned that legal counsel for the developer had reached out to me today, indicating that they wanted to begin that process for dedication of the roadways in phase 2A.
I just am worried because phase 1 took how long?
Well, part of the main reason why dedication for phase 1 took so long was because of that National Grid easement.
Right, which I thought you guys said you weren't even sure if was the same issue for 2A. That's what.
Well, because I haven't seen the type
Right.
report. So yeah, you're right, I agree, I understand what you're saying.
Or I'm just urging you to look into it sooner rather than later is all.
And in my communication, I asked for the title report, so that will let us know. And there may not be any easement at all, which makes it a much faster, smoother process.
And let me reiterate, based on the March meeting that we had, the developer said that the town attorney was making them go through too many hoops before the roads could be dedicated. The attorney has done all the road dedication, your firm, in the last for developments in town. Nothing has changed. We haven't asked for anything more, anything less to protect the town, so, but we understand the concern.
I was the one.
Yeah, you made this complaint.
To piggyback on Allison's comment though, we want to make sure that, and I guess if, history is any indication, there will be snow before it's resolved. And we can't just have contractor plow trucks coming through and band-aiding it. It needs to be properly plowed and salted for safe travel.
Brandon, you had your hand up?
Isn't a deed restriction something that's enforceable through the town?
No.
No, that's an HOA.
No, you can have a house that says you can't have a clothesline. I can't enforce that. That's private.
Can't enforce that?
No.
That's
What about like an unregistered car in your driveway
That's because it's a code violation of ours. We don't have any town codes that say whether or not you can have I'm picking clotheslines because that's a common one in a lot of subdivisions. They say you can't have livestock, you can't have clotheslines. I don't have any, when you look at the document that your attorney prepared, it says who the parties are to that. And if you're not a party, you can't enforce it.
So
that's why I used to live in a development that had declarations, not an HOA. It says you couldn't have an outbuilding. Out of 25 houses, I think 23 had outbuildings. Town had no ability to enforce it. And ironically, even if somebody in the community wanted to enforce it at that point, you have changed the character so much that to say just to one person, you can't have your outbuilding, you wouldn't be able to do it. But the municipality can't enforce a declaration that's private.
as a developer, what would be something that, so for example, say somebody put up a chain link fence, right, which would declare in our HOA bylaws as something we don't permit. But I don't get the ability to review it. I hire a third party, they install the chain link fence. What am I supposed to do as a developer?
Whatever your declaration and bylaws allows for. That document outlines enforcement. It outlines how you are to allow, how you can, who has the rights to enforce and how enforcement takes place. Because it's not a law. Now, if it's whether or not that fence has a permit and whether or not the fence is over 4 feet in height or 6 feet in height, that's our town code. We can enforce that. But whether it's a chain link or we don't care necessarily whether it's vinyl, wood, chain link, that's not our bit.
Is the permitting process supposed to have a sign off from the HOA then?
No, not our, that's like saying, you have a contractor coming to remodel your kitchen and they put on the wrong, they installed granite and you wanted quartz. That's not our bit. We don't care what they installed. What we care about is that you got a building permit and that the permit's, and that you secured the building permit for the work that was done, and that if there's electrical, it's done to code, and if there's plumbing, it's done to code, and we'll sign off at that end. But whether they put in maple cabinets and you wanted white, whatever, we can't, we're not enforcing those private contracts.
Great. Let me just wrap this up so that we can get to the rest of the stuff on the agenda. Dawn, I have your email. Allison, I have your email. So if that's okay, we'll send the communication between the two of you.
Dawn's really good about communicating further.
Okay.
And I just want to say thank you. These are our homes. We spent a lot of money and we want to live there and be friends for a long time, okay? There's been a lot of tears, there's been a lot of heartache that I don't think anybody truly appreciates what we've gone through. So it's important that you hear that and understand it because we came begging for help and support. And I appreciate your time.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We, as a board, are here for you. We're elected by you guys. We're here to protect you and make your community safe. And if there's anything that we can do, we want to do it and we should know about those issues. So if you have to email one of us or all of us, we're always available to you. So any issues going forward, please reach out. Don't be afraid. Come to the meetings, talk to us. We're here for you all. And thank you everyone for coming out tonight and speaking what you've had on your heart and on your minds about this. I'm hoping we're all moving in the right direction and it'll end up being a beautiful neighborhood for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well said. All right, moving on to item 1 on the agenda. We have a letter from Greg Maxwell announcing his resignation as budget officer. Can I get a motion to accept the resignation of Greg? Approved.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
No, just a thank you for his service, many years.
And for his help here and with the new comptroller, and he's also still agreed, offered to take questions. It's just things going forward need signatures. It's going to be Michelle Bona's responsibility. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, this is to announce that the budget work sessions will take place on Wednesday, the 12th, and Thursday, the 13th, beginning at 6 o'clock here in this boardroom. And then number 3 is penciled in, review and consider approval of budget transfers per the comptroller's memo. Can I get a motion to that, please?
I'll make a motion to accept those transfers.
Second.
Any other questions? We went over this in the work session, but any other questions?
Just one question, do we need to appoint the budget officer, or can we go
It
without?
can be the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so in the organizational meeting, it'll be budget officer and comptroller.
Well, I just didn't know if we needed to do that before the end of the year.
No.
Okay.
No.
That's all.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to read. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Councilor and committee reports. Ron?
Yeah, Mike and I had a parks meeting and we wrapped up the summer and I'm sure everybody got the information. We sent it out to everyone. We had a great summer up in the park. It was a very expensive summer in the park. When we get into budget sessions, we have some things that we're going to have to look at as far as staffing, some of the equipment that is falling apart, for a better term. And that'll be a budget session when we go over that. You have all the numbers and everything, the pool gate, how it went. Maybe we should charge more for some of the admissions and stuff. And then also we came up with our donation acceptance form, and we're going to move ahead with that. We had Heidi, she is going to take care of the AED, Wendy. We're going to move forward with that, and she's going to get a hold of Lori, and we're going to move ahead on the acceptance on that. And
She's got to put the procedures in place for everybody.
Shouldn't we have to vote on accepting this donation acceptance form as use in the town? I mean, I've never even seen it before. Last I knew, it went to Nadine for input, and now I see it in front of me filled out by a resident who has seen this before us.
This is a draft. This version that you're seeing is not the final product. They wanted to put something in place for this. Nadine does have the draft at her possession to just review.
I do, and
It wasn't, I didn't expect it before the end of this month, I don't think.
no,
So,
I think you told me October.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why would this have gone to a resident and they filled it out and sent it in?
To give us something to work with.
To give us something to work with, I don't understand.
So that they can write down what they're giving us and what the dollar amount is.
Well, I guess, why are we rushing this if we don't have a form in place already?
I can't answer that, but.
Why are we rushing this when we don't have a form in place already?
with this form that we did here, Wendy, this is just so that these people have been trying to order this bench. And the price we don't want it to keep going up for them. So this is set here, just so they were able to order the bench and get it processed.
Again, why are we rushing this? We haven't rushed the AEDs. Why are we rushing this for this?
We're just giving them the opportunity to order it. That's all we're doing. We're not rushing anything.
Well, it sure seems like it is when we haven't even seen a draft of a donation
We're not
acceptance
rushing
form.
anything here.
Then why is this completed and the board's not even seen it? That to me seems like a rush.
The donation.
The donation form.
No, I understand. What I was gonna say is, the form may or may not require town board approval. We have, various forms that your town uses, whether it's, I wanna put in a fence, whether I want a building permit, that the town board does not approve.
Sure.
But to the extent that town's receiving donations, the receipt of those would be approved by the town.
Sure.
So you would know, if you're concerned, is not so much the format of the form, but whether or not the town board's aware of what's being donated and where its use is going or what it's for, whatever, you would get that.
Yeah, I'm kind of going off our last board meeting where Ron said that, and Mary Frances said that the form was with you and we were waiting to see a draft, and all of a sudden now I see a completed form, so I'm just kind of following up where that conversation left off. I need to hear it.
I don't know.
Right.
But I will tell you, when I spoke with Mary Frances, it was October.
Right.
That's what I
The whole thing is simply to get stuff on paper, to see what it is. It's not the final draft, everybody will see the final draft, but as Ron said, to move this donation forward so the person could go ahead and,
whatever.
Okay, whatever. Anything else, Ron? No. Okay, Darcy?
Well, if you're gonna say something, then let your words be what your actions are.
Well, I mean, we put together forms in the town all the time that we have no input on. I mean, we
yeah.
changed the codes form and then we prompted printing costs increase. I mean, I
I'm
never
going
saw
off-
the changes.
I'm going off the last board meeting where our supervisor indicated a draft was with. Now I see one. I would just like to see the form before it goes to a resident for signature.
Darcy, anything else?
Yeah, never mind, nothing tonight.
Wendy?
Nothing.
Mike?
Nothing that Ron hasn't already spoken about.
Jenny?
Yeah, I have a couple things.
Ron, the tallies for this year's pool and the pavilions, how does that help?
Guys, I'm sorry, it's really distracting.
Andy?
In the back.
Andy?
Can you, just until we're done, please.
If you want to speak, you're free to go out in the hall, okay?
Thank you.
How does that outweigh in comparison to before COVID? I mean, did we do as well or better this year than we did?
Season to season
really
is
did
so
bad.
hard
Bring all
because
those-
it's weather related. I mean, I just feel like it's really hard to ever compare a season.
And we don't have those numbers, it would be back from 19, we didn't look at them. She just gave the report for this year.
Heidi will have all that information for us when we have our budget session with her.
Great, I just was wondering.
There's
what
a
it would-
comparison, absolutely, you want to know where we were.
We traditionally only made about 30,000 on the pool anyway.
No, that's what we traditionally lose.
Huh?
That's what we lose every year. Just to be clear, we make nothing on the pool.
So
I
it's
reiterate this every year at budget time.
It's fairly flat.
Well, chemicals and water was huge this year.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
as
In
a
spite of
pool
that,
owner,
we had,
Chemicals were 3 times what it usually is.
and we needed water this year badly. So I totally understand where that comes from. Just because we had a citizen speak last meeting about Pottery Road, I took a ride out there on Sunday just to see how everything was going. It was very quiet. Jason, maybe you can give some insight on how that project, if it's coming to closure or not, but it was quiet, it was very neat.
So to my knowledge, nobody is dumping out there any longer. So this permit expires the end of the year. Part of his permit obligations are to have that topsoil and seeded vegetation established on that place, which is a huge undertaking for a property owner. It's nice when Troy was there, Troy's contractor was there, because they had made some methods to get that done. So there's a lot of work to be done on that by the end of the year. But to my knowledge, no one's dumping out there anymore.
Yeah, it looked really neat and excavated, and it was quiet, so I'm hoping that the Cicerellis are getting a little relief from.
I've not heard from them since last meeting.
We go down there to fuel up and I haven't seen anything or heard anything since the last board meeting.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Howard?
I have nothing.
Okay. Doug, anything else?
Nothing else this evening?
Okay. Let's see, I have no other comments. Jason, anything else from you?
No, so.
Okay. Nadine? No. Okay. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn to the next meeting on October 5th at 7 p.m.?
Moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. See you on the 5th.